Hello and welcome to another episode of Sharing Wisdom. I'm your host, Angie Wisdom, and today this episode is a podcast for everybody. Seriously, it's not often I do a podcast where I can say whether you're single, this is for you, whether you're in a relationship, this is for you. No matter who you are, this is going to be a relatable podcast for you. I have Diana Mandell joining me today. She is actually licensed as a therapist and has her degree in psychotherapy as well, but she's also known as the anti-therapist. I know we'll have to explain a little bit more to you, but she actually helps people in finding relationships, being in healthy relationships. We're going to talk all about how to make your relationship go from good to great, to be that power couple. And we're also going to talk about, for those of you who are single, maybe what's kind of preventing you from getting in that relationship that you so want and deserve. So it's going to be a great episode. Stick around and get a pen and paper out because we've got some good exercises for you too. Well, Diana, this is super exciting. When I first thought about having you on the podcast, I thought of all the clients that I have that are either single going, when am I ever going to find my partner? You know, time is ticking and they're frustrated. And then I also thought too about my clients who are in relationships and are married that are also going, man, this isn't really what it quite used to be, and are kind of struggling and having challenging times there. So I thought, how exciting to have you here as an expert to shed some light and to guide us all things relationship, dating, and, just all good things between two people.
I love it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to kind of know is share a little bit about your story, because you are an expert in these areas. I mean, you're known by, Chicago Tribune, Forbes, NBC, New York. You're very well known in this industry. So what gave you the expertise and how did you land here?
I have 3 degrees. I went to school for 6.5 years. And I've been doing this for probably 10 years, maybe even a little bit more post school.
Mm-hmm.
So the expert stuff is always evolving. But that's where all of that came from. In terms of my story, it's a long one. We don't have all day, but I'll give a
Cliff
condensed
notes.
version. Yeah. I was born on
Yeah.
a rainy Monday.
Yeah.
Um, it's a couple things. I saved a girl's life from suicide when I was 10. I
Mm,
obviously didn't realize then what the magnitude of that was, but I realized that I had something, kind of a gift innate within me that's not necessarily a learned thing.
mm-hmm.
I was nicknamed the therapist in high school. I was always helping people. Well, always people even now will say, "I don't know why I just told you that," right? Like everyone overshares with me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I almost feel like my profession chose me without sounding super corny. That's just genuinely how it feels. I was
Mm-hmm.
definitely a shit magnet in my 20s. I had a lot of trauma growing up. I went to my first therapist, I believe I was 15. Uh,
Mm,
and it was a not good experience. It was the first time that I ever told anyone all of the things that I've been through. And at the end of the first session, she said to me, if you're thinking of killing yourself, here's a suicide hotline number. You have a lot to be sad about. And it was
wow.
like, okay. So that was my first experience. And it just sort of grew from there through my 20s, where it was just a culmination of just not great situations and moments. And I hit a very rock bottom moment around 30 where I basically just lost everything. I trusted my boyfriend, who put me in touch with like basically a con man in my business, and I just lost everything. And I was sitting on the floor of my apartment that I was about to lose and just thought to myself, like, how did I get here? I
Mm,
was very good at hiding a lot of things, faking a lot of things, wearing that mask that a lot of us love to wear. And I basically gave myself a choice. You can either move in with your mother and just sort of exist and be okay with that, or brick by brick, you can build your life up. I didn't have anything left particularly. So it was like a
mm-hmm.
total restart. I lost everything. So I chose the latter and I ended up becoming my own client. And it wasn't because I thought it was a good idea. I just didn't know what else to do. I've gone to,
Mm,
multiple therapists, and I just was a mess because I had all the trauma kind of leading behind me. And even though I didn't have any like real vices or anything, sort of huge or catastrophic that I was doing, so I felt like I was okay. Um,
mm-hmm.
I wasn't attracting the right type of people or friends or, romantic partners. Like I just wasn't happy. Business was kind of meh. I was in a different business. I had a little bit of this business kind of in the background. Um, and I just literally changed my entire life. And then the action
Wow.
steps that I gave myself, I ended up giving a client, like just kind of sprinkling here or there. I'm like, I don't know, I came up with this for myself. Maybe you'd like this. This was a million years ago. And they're like, where have you been hiding this? Right. And I
Mm,
got more positive feedback where I was like, wow, there's something to this because action steps in therapy was never a thing. So
right,
I just
right.
incorporate and I still continue, to just almost like whitewash, everything I'm doing where I'm like, okay, I got to start over. Like how, what do I take with me? What do I not? What do I replace, especially at the end of the year, like now. So, um, I am obsessed with what I do for a living. I love being able to help people, and it goes beyond just like, here are a couple of tips to be more attractive. I'm very much about changing people's mindset, healing wounds, showing up differently, asking for the things that you need, putting in boundaries, like doing all the things that we never were taught to do.
Sure, sure.
Oh, I love just the results, that I give people. It's just, it's a beautiful thing. So.
I love that. I mean, so we've definitely got a combination of obviously the educational part, but the real life journey that you've gone through. And you said something that made my ears kind of perk up a little bit when you said, I was, and you named some of these things. I was good at hiding it. I put the mask on. And the first question that comes to my mind is how impactful is it, when you think about what you show up as in a relationship? How much does that affect the relationship that you're in?
It's everything, actually.
Mm,
And it's from the beginning because you can't start a relationship one way and say, just kidding, I'm going to take all of that back. It all matters. And everything that's happening internally, as much as you want to hide it and shove it down to our feet, it all comes out, especially in a romantic relationship, because that's all intimacy based. Right. So there
mhm,
is nowhere to
mhm.
kind of shove it or hide it. When it comes to work stuff or friendships, like there's time, like you can hide a lot of that. You can sort of spread it apart. You can, it's like malleable, right? Like it doesn't really, the emotional side of you doesn't come out. It does a little bit, obviously, from like a mindset perspective and how much we're trying to prove ourselves and our work ethic and so forth, productivity, self-sabotage, all of that. But when it comes to romantic relationships, there's just this button that it presses, that it hits for us where it's so personal that, and we don't learn these things anywhere. Like, where do we learn how to
Mhm.
be a good partner? Where do we learn accountability? Where do we learn to put our ego aside? Where if you and I were in a relationship that we're able to actually speak to each other, so much of what we're saying, we're talking about the mask, like that's what we're doing. We're filtering our comments because our the partnerships that we have, our partners are teaching us how to treat each other, right? I mean, it's teacher
Mm,
and student
mhm.
essentially. And if your partner is not teaching you how to show up and we're walking on eggshells, we're not being honest with each other because you're saying, I don't want to hear it unless it's happy and pretty and you're putting me in a great light. I don't want to hear it. So then it becomes this eggshell situation. No one's being honest. It's very filtered. It feels very awkward. So we can't have honest
Mhm.
conversations anymore. It's like sort of surfacey stuff, and the connection, the intimacy, it's just not fully there. We're just not being honest and we're not sharing what we want and need.
Yeah, so I can hear that, getting into a relationship, how important that is to iron that out. I've always said you have to have a relationship with yourself. You have to love yourself, have a relationship with yourself before you can really show up fully in a relationship. And that's a lot of work for some people to do, and not everyone intentionally does that. Most people probably don't before they just enter into a relationship. So, I hear you saying like it's everything because you start that way. You can't just a month later, right? Go, okay, actually, I'm not as quiet as, I showed I was. But what about the people who are in a relationship that do change, that do grow and evolve? And maybe it's 10 years into the relationship and they have done this growth. Like, how does a relationship navigate that change?
It's a lot because what if one person's growing and the other one's not? Right. And I see that
Yeah.
fun. And that's a problem. That's a total disconnect because one person's moving forward and the other one is like, hey, I don't know if I like this. Like I'm kind of good over
Mhm.
here. You're over there. This is weird. I don't know. So that's just an odd
Mhm.
dynamic with that. If you're both growing together, that's great. But I think there needs to be a conversation every so often in terms of where you're at, where you're trying to grow to and build to. Because if we meet and we're in a relationship and you're kind of like mid-level confidence, let's say, and all of a sudden you really start working on yourself, it still is different. And so it's a good thing, but you want to make sure that you understand what your partner's doing, how they need to be supported for both of you, what kind of goals you have, talking about accountability, because if you're doing it all on your own, and I don't really know exactly what's going on, I can't necessarily move with you or understand what exactly it is that you're doing. So I just see a different version of you. Granted, it's probably more empowered and everything else, but that can feel sort of weird and a little bit threatening and different. And so I need to
Mm-hmm.
understand how that works. So while you may have your own therapist and I may have my own therapist and my own journey, which is great, we also are a unit together. And if you're always dating each other, regardless of how long you've been together, that's huge. Remember we were dating back when, right? It's like, remember that time we're like, yes, I don't necessarily want you to be on your best behavior and just say, like, oh my God, you love that. I love that too. That's so wonderful. It's not about being overly agreeable and trying to sell something that isn't real. But it's about the fact
Mm-hmm.
that there was appreciation there and you cared and there was, a little bit of mystery and wonder and really wanting to learn. And, all of that kind of goes away. And we start
Mm-hmm.
to focus on our careers. We start to focus on our kids. We just get sucked into vortexes and our parents get ill. There's just a million things to focus on that we're like, oh, like whatever, we've been together a while, like we're good, and it just sort of like rips apart, at the seams, and it starts to get kind of weird where it's not necessarily bad. So you're like, okay, like my marriage isn't bad. Most people are like, I have a good marriage, but don't you want to have a great marriage? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
can it always continue to get better? We don't know what we don't know. Our blind spots are the things that are causing problems, which aren't necessarily drag out, sort of punch out fights per se, that are super intense, but it's that sort of disconnect of like, hey, I got to do work. Hey, I got to focus on the kids. Hey, I got to, my mom's not well. Hey, my friend needs this. Hey, and we're just sort of everywhere except for our partnership. And I'm of the mind that
Right.
if the two of you are not good, nothing else matters. You two need to
Sure.
come before work. You two need to come before the kids. I mean, everything, because you two are the captain of the ship. If you are, steering the ship and you're just now lost at sea because you're not actually steering anything, then where are
Mm-hmm.
you? I'm right. I mean, like, it
So,
doesn't matter. The kids
yeah.
on the ship, like, you guys are just sort of lost at sea and it's a mess. And you're teaching
And
them
I think
how to have a
a
relationship.
right, and I think a lot of people know that, right? Like, consciously, we know that or we've heard that,
Sure.
and I don't think it's intentional that all these things that you shared just kinda pop up, and I like to think of it as, like, they just start taking up space,
Sure.
and when there's a limited amount of space, if one thing comes in, something typically pushes something out. So, whether you have kids, whether you have a promotion, whether your parent gets sick, that starts to take up space, and so, usually, the thing that is most stable and the longest, easiest thing gets pushed out. So for the people listening and going, yes, I know that I've heard that. What does that actually look like? Do you have advice that you tell people on you two have to come first? Like, here's what you need to do.
Yep. So there's a million things. But one
Mhm.
thing that I love for people to do is to set something specific to your point on the calendar. So we can know
Mhm.
something, but then we don't implement it, right? I mean, a lot of
Mhm.
times self development isn't like, oh my God, that's miraculous. It's more so that most people aren't actually doing it. So one thing that you can
Mhm.
do is to set something in your calendar for both of you that every two
Mhm.
weeks or so, you can even start every week. It's up to you in terms of like how disconnected are you, but every
Mhm.
2 weeks ongoing for the rest of your life, not like, oh, like if we think of it or we come across it or now we're really in big fight, so we should do this. It's not something to pull out when in defense of something, or when something's going
Mm.
on. We want to be proactive, not reactive. So it's what I call the couples check in. It's a longer thing, but I'll give you the sort of condensed version.
Yeah.
It's where, let's use you and I as an example. So we sit down, no distractions, no, we're going to dinner in 20 minutes, no phones, no kids, no nothing, just the two of us. Leave open ended because it's hard to say how long it's going to take. Obviously, the first few times you do it, it's going to take more time than not. Where we sit down, one of us goes first, doesn't matter who. It could always be that you alternate, every other time. I sit down and I share everything that's going well in our relationship and everything you see solid, on your end as well. We do this for two reasons. Number one, because you want more of the good. So when I know what's going
Mhm.
well, then I'm going to give more and you're going to get more, it's all good. And then in terms of the constructive stuff that's coming next, you're a little less defensive, because you just heard a lot of really beautiful things, said about
Mhm.
you. So we do this for a few reasons. And I want to understand why. Like, I really appreciated that you gave me breakfast in bed. Why? And it may seem obvious, but maybe it's not so obvious, right? So I want to know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want any guessing. I don't want to fill in anything. I don't want to assume anything. So tell me exactly why that means something to you. Or, um, you let me sleep in, and you grab the kids, for a couple hours in the morning, but tell me why. Like, what did that mean
Mm,
something to you? Why, was that something, that was extra nice for you? Okay, so then
mm-hmm.
at the end of going through the list of the good things, we say, what I heard you say was, and I want you to go through the entire list of what the person said. So, pen and paper when you guys are doing this, and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that what you're hearing is actually what your partner intended. Because it's very easy to think you're on the same page, but it's like, no, it's not what I meant. Or
Yeah.
that's not exactly, it's like that's partially correct, but the other part is like a little bit missing there. So you're just able to kind of, smooth all of that out. And then the constructive part comes next. And I'll just say as a caveat, if this is something that you're not great at just on the spot type of stuff, which a lot of people are not, feel free to a couple of days before. Like, let's say we're doing this on a Friday. So on Wednesday, I'm going to sit down and just kind of start writing down some of my thoughts. Then Thursday, I can always pick it back up again. So don't feel like you need to just sort of deer in the headlights, just suddenly
Mm-hmm.
do this together. You can do some of this note taking ahead of time. So now we're in the constructive part. So I'm sharing with you everything that I have issue with. Now, we need to, again, drop the ego, drop the defense. You need to hear these things because this is exactly what the issues are based from, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm upset about certain things or frustrated about certain things or sad about certain things. It's your responsibility as a partner to hear it and just know you're going to give it too, right? So you're not just
Sure.
taking all of the bad and like, but you're perfect, so that's great. You're
Yeah.
both giving each other constructive feedback, and it sucks. I'm not saying it's fun to hear, but it's your responsibility to hear it as a partner. There's certain things that need to happen or need to not happen. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then the trick for this piece, the constructive piece that a lot of people get wrong, A, they're not even sharing, what's not going well, because again, we teach our partners, hey, if it's not good, please don't tell me. So there's that
Mm-hmm.
piece just in itself. Now, there's some couples that will say what they don't like, but either they're sort of snapping at their partners or their partner is just completely defensive and not listening to anything that the other person's saying because they're being sort of barked at. Or they're saying what they don't want, but they're not saying what they do want. So let's go with the silly example of, the breakfast in bed. I can say, I really appreciate breakfast in bed. Unfortunately, I don't really love eggs and bacon. But then it just stops there.
Mm.
So then the following weekend comes around and she likes breakfast in bed. Okay, perfect. I'm going to give her breakfast in bed. I'll do blueberries and waffles. But I don't like blueberries and waffles either. So now we're both annoyed, right? Because it's like the second time you've done it, but it's also the second time you've done it where, I'm not happy, but I never said what I did want. So it's not just
Mm-hmm.
good to say, hey, I don't love this, or hey, this hurts my feelings, or hey, this felt kind of off for me. What you want to say is that part of this wasn't great, but what I'd like for you to do instead is blank,
Mm.
right? Or also a format that works really well is when you say or do XYZ, it makes me feel blank. Because oftentimes we over talk, we talk way too much. We just kind of throw a lot of stuff at our partners and we don't know how to calmly share something. Your emotion is separate from the words that you're saying. If you're angry, you don't need to sound angry. You just need to say with words, hey, I'm really upset about this, or like, hey, this really hurt my feelings, or hey, I'm really disappointed. But you keep a very calm demeanor because if not, you're backing your partner up against the wall and defensiveness, here we come. Right. And you're not going to
Sure.
be heard. So, it's just a simple phrase to use, super calm. And when you're calm, your partner's calm, you're able to have a more constructive conversation versus just like going nuts, and not even realizing it.
Yeah.
It's emotional regularity, which we're not always great at.
Right.
But
And
that's
let me
just,
pause you there for a second because I think as people are hearing this, it's going to be so important to almost have like a precursor conversation around this
sure.
to get people like thinking about it because not many people are open to receive that criticism, the request for something different. Like there's can be instant maybe resentment or lack of gratitude of like, gosh, I made you breakfast and you can't even be grateful for that,
Right. But
you
you need
know?
to be open to hearing it. And it is hard
Yeah.
for people. And I get that. And it still, stings when I hear things. But I'm also so proud that my husband feels comfortable being able to do that. And I'm able to give it back to him so that
Yeah.
we can know each other so well that we anticipate each other's needs. There's very few issues that we have. And if we do, It's basically squashed within 5 minutes, I feel like. And there's never,
Mhm.
we don't
Mhm.
yell. And if someone starts to kind of like lose it a little bit, because listen, we've got young kids, we've both got businesses, like there's a lot going on. One of us says, like, hey, like I'm on your side, by the way. Like you are
Yeah.
partners. Like we forget that. But like you are on the same
Right.
side. And if you really don't think that you're on the same side, then think you need to think about your relationship. If you genuinely feel that there's something nefarious going on, that's something to think about.
Mhm.
But you have to assume, like, seek to understand, give your partner the benefit of the doubt, assuming you really believe that this person loves you genuinely and there's no malintent or no, kind of ickiness around any of it, where they really do want to understand you. We're hard, like we're very complex people, even men. I think we think like, oh, men
Mhm.
are dumb and they're simple and blah blah. Like, they're not. Like everyone likes very different things. Everyone likes to be spoken to differently. When you take accountability and you know that your partner can share anything with you, yes, we want to be gentle, but we want to be honest. That's when that intimacy and that connection, like that's that power couple, sort of vibe that everyone
Mm.
wants, but often
Mhm.
doesn't have because we're afraid to share. I have clients that have been together for 20 years and she's like, I hate the way he kisses me. And I'm like, you've never said anything? And she's like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to say something. And I'm like, whoa, like this is, I mean, listen, I'm not saying it's fun, or easy to
Right.
share that,
Right.
but that feedback has to be there. You need to be able to share things that don't always feel great, because if not, that's going to be the resentment that you have that builds. Your partner has no idea what's going on. They can't fix it because you never said anything. And again, you're just getting
Mhm.
angry and angrier, and you're going to become like what I call like a pressure cooker, right? Like a rice cooker, where it's just like all of a sudden it just sort of
Yeah.
explodes, and your partner's like, what the hell? And we do what I call stacking, where we stack our issues. And then at some point,
Yes.
there's just like a little like, feather, of a situation comes through, and you just start, shooting, you know what I mean? Like those bullets out of the gun, and your partner's like, what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
where did this come from? You can't assume that your partner knows anything. Like I said, you have to over explain initially to not have to explain as much later. Like there's very little of that. Like
Mhm.
our check-ins, my husband and I don't know, be an hour or two. I mean, it's a lot. But now, I don't know, they're probably 20 minutes, something like that. Like we're
Mhm.
so dialed in, and we check in with each other every single day. We talk every day. And it's not that we have to sit there and hold each other and cry. And, it's not like a
Yeah.
therapy session every day. Sometimes it's just sort of a light thing. But sometimes it's like, hey, this is on my mind, or hey, this really upsets me. And it's not necessarily just about each other. It's about life. I mean, welcome to life, where something can really be upsetting, or hurtful. So when you're
Right.
sharing not only just what's not going well, or what needs improvement, but then also what to do instead. This is where you win. Like, this is what sort of sets apart, the people that kind of have like an okay or good marriage to someone who has an amazing marriage, who's able to hear the things that, like, yeah, you're going to get kicked in the teeth a little bit, but your partner's going to
Yeah.
get kicked in the teeth a little bit too. And everything that you're not saying, that's where that sort of dishonest, sort of filtered relationship comes into play. Again, the ego has to go out the door. It just has to not be
Mhm.
there at all. And understand that your partner is saying, not that you're a bad person, or that you're some horrible, human being. I think that's where our insecurity, gets hit at. It's more so something that is a blind spot. It's something that your partner
Right.
wants more of or less of. We're not going to know that. Like, this whole idea is just a blueprint. So when you write these notes, I know exactly what Angie needs. Like, I don't have to guess. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to assume anything. I don't have to think about, like, well, what worked for my ex? Maybe I should try that. Like, there just is no assumption. You, from your own mouth, told me exactly what you like, exactly what you don't like, and now I know exactly what to execute on for the next couple weeks until we see each other again and sit down and do it again.
Mhm. So many things are popping up for me around this. One, I think people have to look at this from a not of a fixing of things, but an elevation. You may have what you consider a good or okay marriage, but
Mhm.
do you want it to be great, like you said? If you want it to
Yeah.
be great, then you put in this work. And if we look at it from that perspective of, okay, well, it's not broken, we're not fixing it. So we don't have to be judgmental or defensive. It's just about elevating it. I think that can create some space there. And you really nailed it. Like, it resonated with me when you said power couple, because
Mhm.
I think people look at other couples like that and they're like, man, how do they have that? What is that? And so what you're saying is, look, take this time, sit down and say what the good things are and why they're good.
Yeah.
And then also be able to say what maybe you're frustrated about or what you'd like to see different, and give those details. So I just love it. It's like you've given people a recipe here and a formula to increase communication, which you probably know. If somebody says to me, like, what's the number one thing? I've been married 27 years. So they say to me, like, well, what's the secret? One of the default things is to say, well, communication. You got to have great communication. And
Sure.
that's a really broad word, right? Does that mean you just have to talk? But
Right.
this is like that elevated communication.
Exactly.
I love
It's
it.
not just that sort of
Absolutely love it.
daily communication where you just chat about, the kids and your family and your
Right.
friends and work stuff, right? Like there's like daily communication, there's emotional communication where it's how am I feeling and how am I doing and what's coming up for me and what am I
Mm-hmm.
afraid about and what am I excited about. And I feel like oftentimes you're like, okay, the kids needs this, this activity with the kids, this holiday's coming up, this whatever, we got to do this for this birthday party. It's all that stuff, which all matters. But then we
Sure.
kind of don't leave enough room or time for the like, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling. Where are you at there? I love that we sort of mix together with my husband. Where we're like, okay, we got to do this, we got to call this
Mm-hmm.
person, we got to do this back. Okay, we got blah, blah. And then once that sort of clears out a little bit, then it's like, how was your day? What's coming up? What are we feeling? What are we doing? And it's nice to hold each other accountable. It's like, hey, you said last week that you were going to have a conversation with this person. How did it go? And you're like, I'm avoiding it. Right. Like, and you're able
Mm-hmm.
to sort of
Yeah.
gently be each other's accountability buddy in a sense. And it's not with judgment. It's really more with curiosity and respect for the other person to make sure that they're doing what is important for them. So it's not just, how am I feeling in this relationship and us together? It's also, how are you feeling individually? What's happening, for you? What are your goals? What are your needs? What are your wants? Especially at the end of the year where we have basically a month left. What's important for you for the end of the year to just kind of, finish up in a really good place. And then what looks like, for next year, like what are you thinking about? And you can create different categories to look at, from a fitness perspective, here I am, a mindset perspective, a family perspective with the kids, our relationship, work. I mean, you can really kind of break it down and think through like, what are my mini goals? Don't make these
Mm-hmm.
huge, crazy goals because you're just going to give up on yourself. But what are kind of mini little things I can do even just this week to start implementing? And if you could kindly, reach out to me, when we speak next week, let me know, just remind me like, how's it going with this or that? Or, anything you want to talk through. I even did that with my husband this morning where I'm like, hey, I need to talk something through work wise with you. Can you just jump in the car with me, with the kids? And he's like, as long as it's early enough, I'm good to go. And on the way back, with the kids, I'm like, hey, what do we think about this? Like, I'm thinking about doing this to, to be like this. Cause when you're an entrepreneur, like you're by yourself. I mean, like everyone else works,
Right. Right.
works under you. Like you're the boss. So it's nice to be able
Such good
to,
advice there.
right? So you're able to, and I asked, and I asked very early, he was at the gym and I texted him and said, hey, can I borrow you for a couple of minutes this morning? And he's like, 100%. So we were able to, carve out that time. I was able to talk about my needs without getting blowback of like, oh, I don't have time for this, or no, I can't do this, or, and I, kept it very brief and, only had about 10 minutes or so, to talk through, but he's like, yep, I love this, definitely do this. Let me know how this goes with this, da, da, da. Like that's having a true partner, someone who really is
Mm-hmm.
looking out for your needs. You feel comfortable, they feel comfortable. I don't have to sit here and think like, do I look cool if I say that? Like, I don't know. I just don't have to do any of that. And I love that. We just
Right.
this total comfortability. And we had it from the beginning.
I love it. So, such good advice from a couple standpoint if you're already in this relationship. And I have to go back, you really pinged an old reminder for me when you were talking about stacking, the
Hmm.
frustrations and the challenges. And somebody once told me, if you ever in your mind feel like you're taking out the scorecard,
Hmm.
you're going down the wrong road. And I've done that before where it's like,
Of
oh,
course.
I meant to make a note of something and there's already something on that list. Uh-oh, so I love that reminder too. Um, on both sides, right? Whether you're doing something good or whether, they're doing something that's frustrating you.
And a great
We got
hack.
to shift.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no,
No, just a quick
give me
hack.
the hack.
So a really great hack for that because we're really good at that. And I feel like especially
Yeah.
women, because we just have a lot on our plates and a lot going on and a lot of
Hmm.
responsibility. So I feel like women tend to at times get more upset with men, I notice. And so I implemented the 24-hour rule where you have 24 hours to air your grievances as
Uh-huh.
things come up. Because then again, you'll have five things and your partner's like, I don't understand any of this. I don't know where this is all coming from.
Right.
I'm overwhelmed. I need like one thing at a time. And if you're talking about something from 3 weeks ago, I don't even know what I did yesterday. You know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
don't have any
Hmm.
context around that. And interestingly, because our memories are not very good, and this has been, tested, studies done a million times, we kind of reinvent history to make
Mhm.
ourselves look more quote unquote right. So we build out an entire story where something like literally didn't happen, but you could swear it did. So it's not even with bad intention. It's just that's how we roll. As human
Right,
beings,
right.
we just kind of continue to mold a story that, we pull details from to make ourselves, again, just feel like anchored, into what we feel. So you have 24 hours for kind of two reasons. Number one, so that it's very fresh. And I know exactly what you're talking about, where it wasn't like a 3 weeks ago
Mhm.
situation where I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't remember saying any of this. I don't remember the conversation. But then you also have, and this is something I do a lot because I'm a more sensitive person. So I need to sit with my emotions. And sometimes I'll do it overnight where I'm like, is this something that really bothers me? Is this something that happened before? Is it considering the
Mhm.
context because he was super stressed out coming home? Granted, we're still accountable and responsible for what we say and do. But it's like, was that sort of out of character? Was that really something that bothered me? Is it worth bringing up something? Because probably every day you could bring up something that annoys you about your partner or something they did
Sure.
that was silly or just, whatever. So you definitely have to pick and choose. 'Cause I think a lot of times men feel like they just can't make their partners happy because women, tend to like there's just a lot of stuff that men do that are like that's annoying. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And vice versa. Because we're open with each other, so we'll say, like that was annoying. So you have the 24-hour rule there for two different reasons. Again, you need to just say it so that it's not something that happened a million years ago and it's saying it in the moment when it's happening to just be able to move along faster. And then it's also there where you give yourself a little bit of time if you feel that you need it, where it's like, is this
Mhm.
necessary? Do I really need to bring this up? Is this something that happened, in the past? So then obviously that is something to then bring up.
Mhm.
And sometimes I do bring it up and sometimes I don't, but it has to be something where I'm like, yeah, no, I think I'm still bothered by this,
Right.
versus, like, like it's not that big of a deal. Or like, you know what, I'll just kind of hold on to it. And if there's something that I see has like a similar vibe to it in the next like week or two, I'm not going to bring up what happened in the past. So you got to let that go. But I will say, hey, and just keep it at the fresh, situation here. But I know
Mhm.
in my own mind, like, yeah, this is like happened before kind of thing.
I
Um,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah. And I like the fact that giving yourself time because I'll often say, like, is this piggybacking on anything else going on in my life right now? Right.
Exactly, because
Because
you
we
need to take
can,
accountability.
yeah, be in, upset about something else. And then all of a sudden, the people who are closest to us get kind of more of the wrath than
Rejection,
anybody else. Yeah.
and am I
So
getting
is
triggered by
this,
this? Right, it's from
mm-hmm,
something, that
100%.
my parents used to say to me or, a bully, from when I was younger said, and it's still something to maybe bring up, but say, "Hey, like, I need to take accountability for this. It did hurt my feelings. I realize it's something I need to work on, but while I'm working on it, if you could just be sensitive, to me working on, this particular issue, I'd really love that."
Mm-hmm. Love it. Okay, so for all the single people out there who are going, Angie, why are you not asking her questions about me? We've got to shift
Hey,
there because
let's do it.
I have a whole head full of people who are going like, you're supposed to be figuring
My
out how I'm supposed
turn.
to find my partner and dating and why I'm stuck at 38 or 40 years old and I still haven't found this person. So that's a really broad throw out there for you, but gosh,
Yeah.
where do we begin with that, Diana?
Yeah. So a couple things. There's emotional residue that we hold onto. It's not necessarily the person that we were with, and this could be a heartbreak from 20 years old, right?
Mm,
Um, but we hold on to the things that we go through and we don't heal them well enough.
mm-hmm,
So we bring it into our next relationship and then we pick up more residue and pick up more residue and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger like a snowball. And we bring it with us. So again, we think like, oh, but I'm over this person. It's not, no, no, no. It's not necessarily the person. It's the emotion, the crap that's left behind that we never dealt
mm,
with. And then the next person's, and then the next person's, right? And whether you broke up with someone or they broke up with you, like there's going to be that emotional stuff that's just there that has to be dealt with because if not, it's just kind of rotting in the corner and it's not good.
mm-hmm.
So that like please make sure and like listen, a lot of people say like heal before you get into a relationship. You can't, I mean, you don't wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I'm fully healed. I mean, it's not like a fully
Right,
cooked
right.
turkey. You know what I mean? Where it's like ding, like the oven and
Yeah.
it's good and it's the temperature and it's all perfect. That doesn't work. It's a forever thing. It's a lifestyle thing. But make sure that you are in a good enough place that you have done the work that as a partner what you were accountable for, what went well, what did not go well in your past relationships. on both sides, right? In terms of like you being a partner yourself and taking accountability there, and then looking at from your partner's perspective, like what went well, what was a strong point of them, and what was some weaknesses where you're like, hey, I really like don't want a partner like that. What are deal breakers
Mm-hmm.
versus wants and needs? Because there's things that you want and there's things that you need. Right. And a need
Sure.
is like a deal breaker where it's like this has to be there. Like, do not collect $200, do not pass go. Like, you need to have this. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you act like. I don't care, doesn't matter. Another thing that's huge that we don't think about a lot is what I call the traits behind the traits. So,
Mm.
everyone, when we talk about what we want in a partner, generally speaking, we're talking about the same things. We want someone who's kind, who's ambitious, who's romantic, who's smart, right? We're all looking for, generally speaking, the same things. Granted, we're going to value certain things more than others. For example, I don't even think I can be friends with someone who doesn't make me laugh, right? So that's a huge thing
Mm.
for me. Probably partially because what I do is fairly serious, but I love to laugh, came from a family where we just, laughed through a lot of, difficult things. So where we value those things are going to be different, but we generally want the same things. But what does that mean? Because my version of a sense of humor is very different from yours. I mean, it's not right or wrong,
Mm-hmm.
it's just different. My version of romantic could be very different from yours. Your version of kindness could be very different from mine. Your version of intelligence, right? So we need to understand really what we're looking for. What do you really mean when you say you want someone smart? You're not going to walk around and say, like, I really want to be with someone who's stupid. I love that idea, right? Like,
Right,
we all
right.
want the same things, but I don't know what that means.
Define it.
Exactly. And the way that I
Yeah.
explain it is like, if we're going shopping and we're going for me, let's say like I need a couple things. I'm like, hey, come with me. Great. So we're at the mall and you're like, what do you need? Like, let me, help you look. I don't know. And you're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking for. And you're like, well, a certain season. Are we looking for pants? Are we looking for a dress? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like,
Mm.
because we don't sit and we don't think about it versus me saying, I need jeans. You're like, done. Right? I mean, like, now you know exactly what I'm looking for. I need a dress for a wedding I'm going to. It's, fancy. So I need a gown, probably, a darker color. Great. Navy or black. Cool. Let's go. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're just not sure. And I think we know because we're like, oh, I'm 30, I'm 40. I should have some, like, I know you don't. And so we just arbitrarily choose people. We're like, oh, I don't know, he's good looking, or like she's cute, or like, I don't know, he's got a good job, or like he seems nice, or I don't know. So it's all very like willy-nilly. So we need to get like
Mm-hmm.
super, super clear on exactly what we're looking for and what it means so that if you are on a first, second, third date, you're like, I don't know if I love that. And when you're saying, let's say, for example, on my list is I don't want to be with someone who's a partier. What we'll do then is we'll assume and we'll go two different ways with something, which is too extreme on both ends. We'll either say, so we're on a first date, let's say, and it's a Monday. So we're like, oh, how was your weekend? That's an obvious question. And I'll say, like, oh, I partied. So in your head, you're like, oh, I did my list, don't like partiers. So then at this point, we either say, like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going on this, like, I'm never going on a date with this person again. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And we just kind of write them off. Or we're like, yeah, he's a partier. I don't like that, but he's really cute and he seems to have a good job. And I think he's really nice and he's funny. So I'm
Make
just
all
gonna
these
let you know we get along.
concessions.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so when we look at those two extremes, it's not good either way. So what we want to do in a very non-judgmental way, because listen, if someone parties, like that's on them, like that's cool, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we
Mm-hmm.
want to ask about it. So we want to say, hey, like I know you mentioned, that you partied this weekend. Cool. Is that something that you do a lot? And again, we're not saying it in a judgy, obnoxious way. We're really like just curious. And let's say, the guy says, oh, like pretty much that's where you'll find me every weekend. Okay, I know that. Or, oh my God, no,
Right.
this is my brother's bachelor party. Like this is, like maybe once a year, if anything. So it's like, okay, you need to advocate for yourself. You need to ask questions in terms of what's important to you. If you want someone who doesn't travel, it's probably not good to be with someone who's a traveling salesman. But you need to ask these questions, like, do you travel for work? Yes or no? I'm not, but let's say I'm allergic to cats. Do you have, pets, right? I mean, it's like these are things that the questions that you're not asking essentially now are the things and the reasons why you're going to be scraping your heart up off the floor later because you're not
Mm-hmm.
advocating for yourself. And another thing that people will say is, don't ask about, past dating. You need to. Like, were you engaged a week ago? I mean, like, you'd be very surprised how people
Yeah.
answer where it's like, oh, I just got out of a 6-year relationship yesterday. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? You know what I mean? So it's like you
Right.
need to be able to ask these questions because these are the things that you need answers to know whether, like, you don't know this person at all. Every question matters and hear what they're saying, not what you want to hear, but what they're actually saying to you without any filters, without any delusions, because we want to, believe that someone has the best intentions or they're really good looking or they seem really funny or charming, whatever. No, you have to hear
Yeah.
exactly what you're hearing because people tell you exactly who they are. We just don't always want to listen.
And I'm assuming it's so true, and I'm assuming, and it's almost a I'm scared to go down this rabbit hole because there's probably so much here. And as we're wrapping up, I want to know though, like as you're saying all of that, there's got to be a great deal of self worth and love that impacts whether or not they're going to ask those questions and whether or not they're going to make those concessions. Whether it's like, no, I know that I don't want to be with a partier, I'm not overlooking it, or whether they flex and go, well, he's got all these other things. Don't you think that's probably a little bit of confidence and self-worth wrapped up in there as well?
Yes, you need to be able to advocate for yourself. And if that's something that you're not great at, and listen, I've been there. So it's not with judgment that we say it. It's something to think about. And you want to be able to
Mhm.
do it in a place where even if you really do want to be with someone, accept the fact that you are single. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'd rather anyone be alone than be in a relationship of any kind that just doesn't do it for you. A romantic relationship is supposed to be someone who enhances your life, who makes your life better and more fun, someone who makes you a better person, who makes up for what you lack. I think we forget a lot of those attributes. And I think a lot of us just sort of trauma bond and a lot of us treat each other like crap. And I think people are terrified to date. I think there's a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of fear, and understandably so, because we treat each other like crap more now than ever because it's just also like transient feeling where it's like, oh, I could go back in the dating apps tomorrow. I
Mhm.
don't give a shit. We're just not kind to each other. We don't respect each other. And a lot of times people say like after a couple of dates, like you don't even need to say anything to anyone. You can just ghost them. It's like, according to who? Like, you don't need to like people, but you need
Right.
to respect them.
Right.
What are we talking about? And people are
Yeah.
literally within my space are telling people these things, how to treat other people, what to do. It's like you're a human being at the end of the day. Like someone could be like, are they alive? Are they okay? Like what happened here? And you may not like them, but they may really like you. And imagine if the roles were reversed. How would you feel if the person just totally ghosted you? Like we're just not kind to each other and it's terrifying people and we don't want to give our hearts, we don't want to be vulnerable, we don't want to open up. So that's where that masking that we're talking about comes into
Mhm.
play.
Mhm.
We teach each other, don't be honest with me, don't tell me anything I don't want to hear. It's just it's really unfortunate because people that are great are terrified and they don't know what to do. And whether you have never been in a relationship, whether you've been in several but want to be with someone new, whether you're newly divorced, or I mean, people are just absolutely terrified. And we need to do better. And even if it's just you
Mm.
doing it, like that's good. That's one person, and just
Right.
continue spreading that where it's like you be a good person no matter what anyone else does. I want to know that at the end of the day, you've done the best that you can do and you can sleep at night and treat each other, well. I mean, you don't need to like anyone, but you don't need to be rude either. So I think the
Yeah.
fear and the insecurity piece is huge. And people model what they saw in their parents. If their parents had a bad relationship, they're like, screw love. Like, I don't want to deal with this. So
Yeah.
with
And we
attachment
attract what we
issues,
give too,
100%, and we
right? So
teach
if
people how
you're
to treat us.
not being kind, yeah, I mean, you're going to track that right back. If you're insecure and you're going to go somebody, it's going to happen back to you. So love that
Exactly.
part of it. And I think you kind of gave me a perfect segue. This has been a wealth of knowledge for me. I've been, selfishly enjoying all of this for my own knowledge, but I know that people are listening going, I want more. Can you make this a 2-hour podcast instead? So
Oh,
I hate that we have to end it here, but where can people follow you and just keep extracting this information from you? I know that, you're online and you have a book as well. So I mean, give us a little bit of information. So depending on the platforms that people are on, they can figure out where to find you.
sure. So everywhere I'm Diana Mandell. Instagram is probably where I'm most active.
Okay.
And my website, dinamandel.com, obviously has a lot of information on there as well.
Perfect. And I didn't even necessarily look, but I want to know like people can seek out your help. Correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I do one-on-one, I do group programs, I do, I have courses, I have books. I mean, I've got all the
Love
things.
it.
So wherever you want to start out, there's an option for you.
I love it because I think it's important that when people hear somebody, because everything you're saying is really resonating with me. And when people hear that, it's hard if you just feel like, well, great, that was some information. but
Yeah.
how do I actually do something about it? How do I actually get that help and guidance? So if you're in that situation and you like what Diana's sharing, follow her and, continue to work on that, because I think that us being able to be in relationships that bring us joy and comfort and connection, all of that is just such an important piece of life. So I love that you're helping people create that and teaching people how to get into it or to rebuild and make their relationship great, to be a power couple. So thank you for all your work, and thank you for all the wisdom that you shared here with us today.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Diana.